My girlfriend demanded I pay off her credit card debt as a test of love. When I refused, she called me cheap, so I ended things and blocked her everywhere. I'm 30 male, pretty average guy, stable job, and I pride myself on being responsible, especially when it comes to money. Growing up, we didn't have much, so I learned early on how to budget, save, and make the most of what I have. I'm not rolling in cash or anything, but I'm comfortable. No debt, a decent emergency fund, and a small but steady savings for the future. My girlfriend, Anna, 28 female, is a bit different. She's fun, outgoing, spontaneous, one of those people who lights up a room just by walking into it. We've been dating for about a year, and honestly, I've always admired her carefree attitude. She has this way of making every moment feel special, whether it's a random Tuesday night or a big holiday. But Anna and I, let's just say we have very different views on money. It's not that I judged her for it, at least not in the beginning. I noticed early on that she liked to treat herself often. New clothes, fancy dinners, weekend trips with her friends. I figured, hey, it's her life, her money, and she works hard, so who am I to say anything? Plus, I'm not the type to police someone else's spending. But every now and then, she'd make these offhand comments that stuck with me. Stuff like, ugh, credit cards are the worst, or I hate how expensive everything is these days. At the time, I just nodded along, thinking she was venting like we all do. But looking back, I should have paid more attention. Fast forward to a couple of weeks ago. We were out to dinner, her choice of restaurant, of course, one of those places where the portions are tiny, and the bill makes you sweat. I didn't mind though, because it had been a while since we'd gone out, and I figured she deserved a nice night. Somewhere between her second cocktail and the dessert menu, she hit me with it. You know, if you really loved me, you'd help me pay off my credit card debt. I laughed. Not because I thought it was funny, but because I honestly thought she was joking. It came so out of the blue, and her tone was light, almost playful. I said something like, nice try but I'm not falling for that one, and went back to looking at the dessert options. But she wasn't laughing. She gave me this weird little smile and said, no, I'm serious, would you? I froze for a second, unsure how to respond. I mean, who says that? It felt like a trap. I ended up saying something vague like, that's a big ask, and she just shrugged it off and said, forget it, I was just testing you. Testing me? Testing me for what? I wanted to ask, but something about the way she said it made me drop it. The rest of the night was fine, and I told myself I was probably just overthinking it. She'd been drinking. Maybe it was just a bad joke, right? Wrong. A few days later, we were hanging out at her apartment, watching some Netflix, when she brought it up again, completely sober this time. She started talking about how stressful her credit card debt was and how much it would mean to her if I could help her out, even just a little. This wasn't a joke anymore. I told her I didn't think it was a good idea and tried to change the subject, but she wouldn't let it go. She said something like, it's not about the money, it's about trust. It's about us being a team. That phrase stuck with me. It's about us being a team. For a second, I started to doubt myself. Was I being a bad boyfriend by saying no? Should I be helping her if I'm serious about this relationship? But then I remembered something my mom always said. Love isn't about what you can buy for someone. It's about what you build together. And the truth was, I didn't feel like we were building anything. I felt like I was being cornered into something I wasn't comfortable with. When I asked her how much debt she was actually dealing with, she got vague. She waved her hand and said, it's not even that much, and I'm paying it off, slowly. But it would mean so much if you could just help me get ahead. When I pushed for an actual number, she changed the subject entirely, saying, I shouldn't have to explain this to you. You're either in this with me or you're not. That was the first time I felt genuinely uneasy about Anna. Up until now, I'd thought of her as carefree and a little impulsive, sure, but this felt different. Manipulative, almost. Still, I brushed it off, hoping it would blow over. But then, a few days later, she brought it up again. This time, she framed it as a test of love. If you really love me, you'd do this for me, she said. It's not even about the money. It's about showing me that you care. I told her I cared about her plenty, but I didn't think paying off someone else's debt was a fair test of love. She rolled her eyes and said, you're such a cheapskate. You'd rather let me stress and struggle than do something meaningful for me. That one stung. I wanted to snap back, but I bit my tongue. I didn't want to escalate things. After that conversation, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than she was letting on. Why was she so focused on this debt all of a sudden? And why was she so reluctant to tell me the full story? I decided I needed to take a step back and really think about where this relationship was headed. It all started again the next weekend. We were at her place having a lazy Sunday, Netflix in the background, her scrolling on her phone, and me half paying attention to some rom-com she'd picked out. Out of nowhere, she sighed dramatically and said, I don't know how much longer I can live like this. At first, I didn't even register what she was talking about. I thought maybe she was complaining about the movie or that her phone screen had frozen or something. But then she added, "It's just so exhausting, you know? Always being stressed about money." There it was again. That knot in my stomach came right back, and I felt my shoulders tense up. I wasn't about to pretend I didn't know where this was going. I took a deep breath and said, "I thought we already talked about this. You know how I feel." She sat up straight, crossing her arms, and looked me dead in the eye. "Do I? Because all I see is someone who claims to love me but won't help me when I need it most." I blinked. "Anna, we've been dating for a year. We're not married. I don't think it's fair for you to ask me to pay off your debt." That's when she dropped the guilt bomb. "Wow. I guess I was wrong about you. I thought you were someone who'd have my back no matter what, but maybe I'm just not worth it to you." That hit me hard. I sat there, trying to process what she'd just said. Was I really being unreasonable? She made it sound like I didn't care about her at all, which wasn't true. I'd supported her in so many other ways, paying for dinners when I knew she was tight on cash, covering gas on trips we'd taken together, even helping her out with rent once when she said her paycheck was late. But this felt like an entirely different level. Still, she was clearly upset, and I didn't want to make things worse, so I tried to stay calm. "It's not about you not being worth it, Anna. This isn't personal. I just don't think it's healthy for us, or for me, to mix finances like that right now." Her response? "Healthy? You're hiding behind excuses because you're selfish. Do you even care about me at all?" That was the first time she'd ever called me selfish, and honestly, it stung more than I'd like to admit. I left her apartment not long after that, saying I needed to clear my head. But the truth? I wasn't just upset, I was confused. Why was she pushing this so hard? What wasn't she telling me? Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention. Anna's mood swings were becoming more noticeable. One day she'd act completely normal, laughing at memes and sending me cute texts, and the next, she'd be cold and distant. She'd make passive-aggressive comments like, "Must be nice to not have a care in the world," or, "Some of us don't get to live stress-free lives." When we went out, she'd alternate between being overly affectionate and subtly jabbing at me. At dinner one night, she joked to the waiter, "He's the responsible one, doesn't believe in treating his girlfriend." She laughed after she said it, but I could tell by the look in her eyes that she meant it. By this point, I couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was going on. It wasn't just the debt itself, it was her unwillingness to talk about it. Every time I asked how much she owed, she'd dodge the question. "Why does it matter?" she'd say. Or, "It's not even that much, you're making a big deal out of nothing." But if it was nothing, then why was she so insistent that I help? Here's where things started to get weird. After another argument about the debt, this time she called me cheap again. I decided I needed to understand more about Anna's financial situation. Not because I wanted to pay off her debt, but because I needed to know what I was dealing with. So I started paying closer attention to her lifestyle. Anna wasn't exactly living like someone drowning in credit card debt. She had a new pair of shoes every other week. She'd post Instagram stories of her getting mani-pedis, grabbing $8 lattes, or hitting up fancy brunch spots with her friends. There was one post in particular that really caught my eye. A photo of her holding a designer handbag I knew wasn't cheap, with the caption, "Sometimes you just gotta treat yourself. #self-love." I remember staring at that post for a solid 5 minutes, trying to make sense of it. This was the same woman who had just spent the past week telling me she was so stressed about money. The same woman who was asking me to help her get out of debt. Something wasn't adding up. The more I thought about it, the more questions I had. Where was she even getting the money to buy this stuff? And if she was really struggling, why wasn't she cutting back on unnecessary expenses? I wanted to confront her, but I also didn't want to accuse her of anything without proof. So, I waited. A few days later, Anna and I were at her place again, and I decided to try a different approach. I asked her how she got into debt in the first place. Maybe if I understood the root of the problem, I could help her come up with a plan to fix it. Her response? "Does it really matter? You're either in this with me or you're not." That was the moment I knew something was seriously wrong. She wasn't even willing to talk about it. It was like she wanted me to blindly throw money at the problem without asking any questions. And when I pressed her further, asking for an actual dollar amount, she got defensive and started crying. "You don't get it," she said through tears. "I thought you were different. I thought you'd actually be there for me, but you're just like everyone else." That's when I realized this wasn't just about the debt. This was about control. She wanted to see how far she could push me. How much I was willing to give up to prove my love for her. And honestly, it scared me. That night, I decided I needed clarity, one way or another. I wasn't going to accuse her of anything outright, but I wanted to get a better understanding of her situation. I thought about asking her friends or family about it, but that felt like crossing a line. So instead, I started paying more attention to the small details, The things she said, the things she posted online, even the way she carried herself. The first thing that stood out was her Instagram. I don't normally check social media that much, but when I went to her page, I couldn't help but notice how different the image she presented online was compared to the version of her I saw when we talked about her struggles. She had just posted a photo from a brunch with her friends, mimosas, avocado toast, the whole works, with the caption, "Work hard, play harder." 2 days before that, it was a picture of a shopping bag from a designer store with the caption, "New bag who dis?" I couldn't wrap my head around it. She'd spent the past few weeks telling me how much she was drowning in debt, how she was stressed, how she needed help. And here she was, living like she didn't have a care in the world. I told myself maybe it was just old content, stuff she hadn't gotten around to posting until now. But something didn't sit right. The next day, I started noticing other things. Her Venmo history, for one. Yes, I know it sounds nosy, but when someone starts pushing you to pay off their debt, you start looking for answers wherever you can find them. Her transactions were public, and a quick scroll revealed a ton of payments for things like drinks, Uber rides, and even a payment to one of her friends for Vegas trip. Vegas? She hadn't mentioned a Vegas trip to me. When I looked at the timestamp, it was from less than a month ago. I started putting the pieces together. Anna wasn't just struggling with debt, she was actively living beyond her means. I knew it wasn't my place to judge her financial choices, but if she was going to ask me to prove my love by bailing her out, I felt I had every right to know what I'd be signing up for. That night, I decided I couldn't ignore it anymore. I called Anna and asked if we could talk. She agreed, but I could tell she wasn't thrilled about it. When I got to her place, she seemed distracted, scrolling on her phone, barely making eye contact. After some small talk, I finally brought it up. "Anna, I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About your debt." She immediately stiffened. "What about it? I just feel like I don't know the whole story. You've been really vague about how much you owe and how it happened. And then I see you posting about shopping and trips, and it doesn't add up." Her expression changed instantly. It was like I'd flipped a switch. "Are you seriously stalking me on Instagram now?" "Wow. I'm not stalking you," I said, trying to stay calm. "But you've been asking me to help you with something big, and I feel like I deserve to know what's really going on. How much debt are we talking about?" She rolled her eyes and sighed dramatically, like I was the one being unreasonable. "Fine. It's not that much. Like, $15,000. Maybe $16,000. But I'm working on it, okay?" "Working on it how?" I asked. "I'm paying the minimums," she said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "But it's hard, okay? And that's why I thought you'd want to help me out." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wasn't even trying to tackle the debt. She was just letting it sit there, racking up interest, while she spent her money on things like brunches and shopping sprees. "Anna," I said carefully, "I need to ask you something. Why do you think it's my responsibility to fix this for you?" Her face twisted like I'd just insulted her. "Because we're supposed to be a team. That's what couples do, they help each other. If the roles were reversed, I'd do it for you." I couldn't hold back anymore. "Would you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're asking me to clean up a mess you don't even want to clean up yourself. You're not cutting back, you're not making a plan, and you're definitely not being honest with me about how this happened." That's when she lost it. She started yelling about how I was just like everyone else, how I didn't understand what it was like to actually struggle, and how she should have known I wouldn't step up when it mattered. The whole time, I just sat there, letting her vent, because honestly, I was done. When she finally stopped, I stood up and said, "I think we're done here." I blocked her on everything that night. Instagram, Venmo, you name it. I didn't even wait for her to text me some long-winded apology or a final jab about how cheap I was. I knew there was nothing left to say. She tried to make me feel like I was the bad guy for saying no.